If you play IDP fantasy football, let's face it really quick. You probably feel neglected by YouTubers not covering IDP very much. And that's about to change because we're making IDP fantasy football fantastic fun this year. So we're going through the top 24 IDP rankings for week 1 fantasy football today. And I'm one of the only YouTubers who covers it. So please go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So dropping down to our first tier right here, Bobby Okereke, Nick Bolton, Zaire Franklin, and Foyesade Oluokun are all my linebackers right here, top tier. Now, obviously, with Bobby Okereke, Foyesade Oluokun, Zaire Franklin, they're always going to be top tier linebackers in IDP fantasy football. They're going to get you a solid 15 to 16 fantasy points per game just based on tackles alone. So really, there's not much to discuss here. They're going to be like this pretty much weekly. The one thing I will say is I have Nick Bolton this week, and it may feel a little bit weird to have Nick Bolton this high. Now, here's my reasoning for Nick Bolton being this high. I think this Baltimore Ravens matchup, I went through this in my kicker ranking video today, is going to be a lower scoring matchup than people think. Now, obviously, this game is tonight, so you can comment if you're watching on Friday that I totally whipped on this call. But I think that Nick Bolton is going to have a lot of tackling opportunities versus Derrick Henry up the middle this week. I think this will be a defensive struggle right here. And I think Nick Bolton will come out and show people that he is a legitimate force in the middle of that Kansas City Chiefs defense. And I think he has a really good breakout party in week 1 fantasy football against the Baltimore Ravens. And then the other thing I'll say is Foyesade Oluokun. The reason he's lower is because Miami is such a spread out offense that when I look at the opportunities for him to get a bunch of tackles up the middle, I would like him better in a matchup versus the Baltimore Ravens, for example, where he's going to face Derrick Henry, or in a matchup versus the San Francisco 49ers, where he faces Christian McCaffrey, or the Jets with Breece Hall. The reality here with Miami is they're so spread out. They have a zone running scheme, so he's going to have to be sideline to sideline in this game, I think, which is why he's a little bit lower than he usually will be. That's the reason why Foyesade Oluokun is at 4 instead of number 1 or number 2, where he likely will be a lot this season. Now, dropping down to the next tier right here, Patrick Queen at 5, taking on the Atlanta Falcons this week. Now, with Patrick Queen, I think that really what we'll see this week is that, again, opposite of Foyesade Oluokun, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Patrick Queen to stuff Bijan Robinson in the middle. I think he's going to have to step up because last year he had Roquan Smith on the other side. So Roquan Smith is obviously very physical tackler as well. Patrick Queen stepped up in his own right, but he didn't do it on his own. He's kind of going to have to do that this year. The Steelers' second linebackers are kind of cross your fingers guys, so I don't think that Patrick Queen has really seen that level of responsibility yet on this defensive side of the ball. So he's going to have to see that in week 1 versus the Atlanta Falcons for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like his chances. That's why I have him at number 5. And then Alex Singleton and Robert Spillane at 6 and 7. Now, with these two linebackers right here, they're going to be the tackling forces for their defenses as well. So with Alex Singleton against the Seattle Seahawks, again, I think a very low-scoring matchup. Same with Robert Spillane with the Raiders here. I think a very low-scoring matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. I think these are both going to be defensive struggle games where the running backs are going to play a massive role. I think Kenneth Walker plays a good role, and I think that Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, or a mixture of both of them, even Kamani Vidal, are going to all have roles. So I think that these linebackers are going to have a lot of opportunities to stuff the run this week, maybe get 10 solo tackles by themselves. They're a tier below our Foyesade Oluokuns, our Zaire Franklins, because they're not going to have the impact on the whole game that those guys will. And speaking of that Chargers matchup against the Raiders here this week, when I look at Justin Herbert's line on underdog right now, he's at 230.5 passing yards. I'm actually taking the lower on this one. The reason I'm taking the lower is because last year he was not able to do that in week 1, and he threw more than 30 passes. Well, in this game against the Raiders, I don't think he's going to throw 30 passes. I think this year he'll probably average 20 to 25 throws this year because they're going to make him really efficient and they're going to limit his throwing volume because they just don't have the receiving core for him to get more than 230 yards in a lot of weeks this year. So if you're in on that line too and you feel pretty bullish about that one as well, join Underdog today by using that link in the comments below. And when you use code FFN to deposit $10 or more, not only will you get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus cash, but you'll also be able to take advantage of this free Travis Kelce line tonight. You're going to have to use it by tonight because obviously the game is just in a couple hours. So if you want to get in on it before game time, go down in the comments, click on that link, and use code FFN to sign up. Now, dropping down to our next tier right here, I've got Trey Hendrickson at 8. And I've got Jonathan Greenard at 9. So we've got our first 2 edge rushers on this list. These are my 2 favorites this week. And it feels weird to have Trey Hendrickson this high up because obviously the offseason with the Bengals has been too weird, as with Jamar Chase. There's been several weird situations here with the Cincinnati Bengals. Trey Hendrickson kind of got pushed down in the news because obviously he's not offensive and the media doesn't cover defense as much. But the reality with Trey Hendrickson is there was a while where he was asking for a trade out of the Cincinnati Bengals. And this week against the Patriots, he's going to play, and I think he's going to do really well against that horrendous New England Patriots offensive line. Their tackles don't look good. If you watch the preseason, they got Jacoby Brissett hurt in the preseason. So they're going up against a master at edge rushing with Trey Hendrickson. This is my favorite edge rusher of the week to get you 3 sacks this week. Now with Jonathan Greenard against the New York Giants, I feel very, very similar. Jonathan Greenard last year actually had a good year. 12.5 sacks when he was still with the Texans. Obviously, he's in Minnesota now, so people just kind of forgot about him since Daniel Hunter, they basically swapped guys. Daniel Hunter went to the Texans, and Jonathan Greenard went to the Minnesota Vikings. The reality here is very similar to the New England game where the Giants' offensive line is just simply not very good. They're simply not a good offensive line. So I like these 2 edge rushers the most this week to get you 3 sacks. That's why they're up here at 8 and 9. Now back to linebackers here. 10, 11, and 12 is Fred Warner, Azeez Al-Shaair, and Ernest Jones. So Fred Warner this week, I will say, is questionable. As of right now, he has a questionable tag. I haven't seen any reason to believe that he's not playing as of the time of this filming, so I'm going to say that I'm not really too worried about it. And again, I think we start to see Fred Warner evolve more as a tackle artist because obviously they don't have Drake Greenlaw to start the year. So everything's basically going to be on Fred Warner this year. And this is a matchup that I like because this is going to be a run-first Jets offense. Breece Hall will take a lot of carries up the middle here, and maybe even Braylon Allen as well. It's mostly going to be Breece Hall. But either way, Fred Warner's going to have plenty of tackling opportunities, and the good thing about Fred Warner is he is athletic enough to cover sideline to sideline. So Fred Warner here, I think is definitely going to be top 10 most of the season, and especially this week against the Jets. Now, Azeez Al-Shaair, linebacker for the Houston Texans now, I think has a good week to start out his Texans tenure as well. This is a divisional matchup against a run-first offense with Jonathan Taylor in the Indianapolis Colts. So I think Azeez Al-Shaair is going to have plenty of opportunities to stuff Jonathan Taylor up the middle of the field. And then with Ernest Jones, still the trade I just don't understand. I don't understand why the Rams did this trade. I think it was a horrendous trade. They could have gotten more for him. There was something going on there, though. Obviously, he's in Tennessee, who really likes him. And he's going up against the Bears this week, who I do believe are pass first. So honestly, I think Ernest Jones is going to be up higher a decent amount this year for me. But right now, against this pass-first offense, I don't know what to expect. But ultimately, I just believe in the talent. I believe in the talent that Ernest Jones is. That's why he's here as a top 12 guy in this tier. Now, dropping down to our next tier right here. Kyle Hamilton, first defensive back on this list right here, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs tonight. I love Kyle Hamilton. And Roquan Smith, the linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, also right behind him at 14. This matchup, like I said earlier, I think is going to be more of a defensive struggle than people think. A lot of people think in the fantasy world this is going to be a high upside fantasy offense type of game. And I think there will be players who do have plenty of fantasy upside. But I also think this is going to be a game where the defensive stars are going to show out. Kyle Hamilton is going to be used all over the field, as he always is. And it's going to be necessary because Kansas City now can go over the top. They can go over the top because they have Xavier Worthy now. So Kyle Hamilton's going to get a lot of opportunities to go rush after Patrick Mahomes. Could end up with a sack or two. Now, Roquan Smith, obviously, he's just going to show up the middle of the defense. Going to be the tackle solo artist, basically, without Patrick Queen. So he's got to be inside the top 20 at the very least every single week from now on. Logan Wilson at 15 of the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the New England Patriots. Logan Wilson's a guy who doesn't get a ton of love. And the Bengals defense isn't fantastic or anything, but again, this New England Patriots matchup is just so golden. The Patriots, first of all, don't have a good quarterback situation. Jacoby Brissett, I'm sorry, is just not a good player. So it's not like they're going to be slinging the ball deep and all over the field. They're going to be a lot of short routes when he throws the ball, and they're going to run the ball quite a bit as well. Logan Wilson is going to man up the middle of that defense and have a really good week tackling on that defense side of the ball. Quincy Williams at 16 and TJ Watt at 17. Quincy Williams, linebacker for the Jets, going to San Fran to take on the 49ers, obviously. And with Quincy Williams, I just think that, again, a matchup to take advantage of because the 49ers are going to run the freaking ball, as they always do. Their game plan is really very similar every week. So any linebacker who's playing the 49ers is going to have good opportunity. But Quincy Williams, we actually know he's a good player. The Jets defense as a whole is a very good defense. So Quincy Williams here at 16, I think actually may be considered a little bit low. And then TJ Watt at 17, obviously is always a player with tremendous upside. There's a couple things I don't love, though. With TJ Watt, I don't love that he's going to be 30 years old now. Obviously, he's, just getting a little bit older. His body's broken down over the years, and with this Atlanta Falcons offense, I don't know what to expect in week 1. So TJ Watt, it's not like I'm relying on another team's offense to stop TJ Watt. He can do it against anybody. But this week, he's so sack dependent as it is. So I don't know what he gets this week. But obviously, since he's such a high upside player, gotta have him inside the top 20. Now, dropping down to our next tier right here, I've got TJ Edwards at 18 and Bobby Wagner at 19. Now, with TJ Edwards, obviously the younger guy for the Bears, really came into his own last year, taking on the Tennessee Titans. Don't know what to expect from the Tennessee offense. I don't think they're going to be run first, though. I really don't think that. Now, with the Bears defense, they're obviously really strong. They're going to get after the quarterback here. And I do think that that could lead to opportunities for TJ Edwards to get some blitzes up the middle of the defense, up through that offensive line. So I think TJ Edwards is just a stabilizing force in the middle of Chicago's defense. Going to be a solid play every week. And then with Bobby Wagner at 19, age. Levante Williams, age as well. It's just two older guys that used to be extremely excellent players. And even last year, Bobby Wagner was really good in IDP. But on a new team this year with the Washington Commanders, he's going to take on a lot of responsibility because this defense is not very good as is. So Bobby Wagner, I just don't know what to expect from him this year. Now with Levante David in that same matchup, again, I just don't know what to expect. Like, Levante David does look like he's declining a little bit, and he still is the head of that Tampa Bay defense. Like, he still is that Mike linebacker who's going to take advantage of every tackle that he can get. So I just don't doubt his ability to get 10 tackles on a single week, but I also do doubt what he's going to look like against an offense that I think actually has a decent chance to be pretty fast-paced this year. Now, with Khalil Mack at 21, rounding it all out, against the Raiders here, it really is an ultimate belief of just him as a player, number one, obviously. And with this Vegas Raiders offensive line, I just don't think it's that good. I don't think it's that good. I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Khalil Mack to get after Gardner Minshew this week because not only is Gardner Minshew just not good, I just don't think the offensive line in Las Vegas is that good. So Khalil Mack with this kind of patchwork offense with the Raiders here and with Jim Harbaugh now on that defensive side of the ball, shoring it up, I believe in Khalil Mack in week 1. Now dropping down to our last tier right here, Terrell Bernard of the Buffalo Bills taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, ordinarily, Terrell Bernard probably is higher than this. Again, I kind of feel similar to how I felt about Foyside Aluakon. I think this Arizona matchup is going to give the Bills a run for their money. And I also think that they're going to be pretty spread out too. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. obviously coming in, his first game of his career. Kyler Murray is just going to keep defenses on its toes as rushing quarterbacks do. So these linebackers get stretched thin. Luckily, Bernard's athletic enough to handle it. But these linebackers are going to be stretched thin because even if he is a spy on Kyler Murray this week, I just don't think that he has the speed to keep up with Kyler Murray at that level. Now with Matthew Judon here, his first game as a Atlanta Falcon this year, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, I also like him to get a sack. At least a sack. The reason he's not actually higher is because he's brand new. Like, he literally got traded to the Falcons literally just weeks ago. So I don't know how I feel about Matt Judon for the season long. I probably rank him higher than this if he's good still. He is, he's in his 30s now, so it's not like he's just this guy who is like super spry. But ultimately, I do think that Matthew Judon against a weak offensive line that doesn't even have like their offensive line figured out. Broderick Jones, the Steelers' offensive tackle, they drafted him in 2023 to be their left tackle. Tomlin doesn't even know what he's going to do with them. It's an atrocious offense, horrible coaching over there. I like Matthew Judon even if he's just got there. And then to round it all out, Derwin James at the safety position. I'm laughing because I'm such a Steelers hater, even though I'm a Steelers fan. Derwin James against the Las Vegas Raiders. I think Derwin James is just your guy that is similar to Kyle Hamilton. I think the Chargers will use him all over the place. And I do like his opportunity to get a turnover in this game. I actually do like his opportunity because Gardner Minshew is not a good quarterback. He's also mistake prone. Like, that's a guy who is willing to throw the ball anywhere on the field, and that doesn't leave without mistakes because he's just ultimately not that great of a player. So Derwin James, I think, is all over the field this week. I think he has the potential for a sack even, but I definitely think he has the potential for a turnover. So he's one of my higher upside defensive backs this week. So let me know how your team is looking so far this week in the comments below. And if you want to see the top 12 kickers for week 1, click on this video right here.